Hello, I'm Lenny Tvedten. Today we're going to take a look at local history and the Martin County Historical Society series called Out of the Past. Today I'd like to welcome Bob Gunther, who's going to tell us a little bit of historical information about Gunther's Food Store. So first of all, Bob, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Was in the Navy for 4 years.
Okay.
I have a wife named Nancy. She was Nancy Lund. Daughter named Elizabeth. She lives in California.
Okay.
I was in the state legislature for 25 and a half years, which I believe sets a record for this district.
Long time.
And
you enjoyed every minute of it, right?
the last few years a little tougher than the first few years. But I enjoyed it. I thought I contributed a lot. Passed some good laws.
Good.
Defeated some bad laws. All depends how you look at it.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about Gunther's grocery store. I remember it like it was there yesterday, but I know it wasn't. As I look back at some of the records we have at the museum, it was called originally, correct me if I'm wrong, O.P. Skaggs.
That's right. It was O.P. Skaggs was a group of stores that my Uncle Charles Van Eaton from Sioux City, Iowa started. And he would find the very best capable manager, pay him austere salary. The stockman got paid as much as he did. But when the store was paid for, he got half. And
So there was a carrot out there then.
there was a big carrot. And the store was paid for in 3.5 years. My dad was at the store, opened the store up at 6 o'clock in the morning and closed it probably at 9 at night back then.
And your dad was Herb Gunther.
Herb.
And what year was that?
1946 the store opened.
1946, okay.
And it was 1/4 of the size it was when it ended. And we had the first shopping center in Fairmont was a tower shopping center. It had a locker plant, it had a bakery, it had a barber, and some other business that was there. And and across the way it had they had a drugstore and Myers Cafe and Buzz Ladd had a war surplus store. Pat Moore had a war surplus store. Buzz Ladd had a store that sold anything.
Well, I read some things about Herb, your dad, and one thing I saw that really stuck out to me was that it was said he never let anyone leave hungry.
That's right. That's one of the things that he taught Alice. If you only can afford to give them a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter, you make sure they have something. And he's always had that in mind. And we followed up with that.
How did Gunther's evolve then? How would you describe the evolution from 1946, O.P. Skaggs, IGA, Gunther's, and so on?
When Charles Van Eaton came to Fairmont, offered to buy my dad out and told him to go back to Sioux City, my dad didn't want to go. But what my Uncle Van Eaton didn't know is my dad bought the building. So after my dad gave him a counteroffer, he said, "I won't accept that. I got more money than you do. You might as well give up." And my dad says, "Well, you take my last offer and move your store out of my building." That kind of made him sit back and think a little bit. And Dad ended up with that. He went to Martin County Bank and borrowed money to pay Van Eaton off. And it was kind of an interesting way of doing things.
I also saw that there were, and this was maybe in the early years, some fruit stands that were out front. What's the disposition of those, or what can you tell us about those?
The guy that built the building to begin with is a guy named Byers, and he had a fruit stand there. And he sold fruit in front of it, like we did later. And that's one of the things that we were known for. My dad knew a lot of brokers, being in the produce business in Sioux City. What he did is, a broker would call him, "Herb, I got this load of watermelon that Super Value turned down on because they ordered too many." He says, "This is the price I'll sell them to you for. I'll sell them to you $1.50 a pound." And Dad sold them for $3. And that was one of my first jobs, is plugging and selling watermelon to people that wanted one.
Manning the fruit stand, huh?
And he sold, but in those pictures that I gave you,
Yep.
And one of them really says my dad's philosophy in life. He says, see, many of the same people I did when we first opened, and this was in another grand opening where we remodeled the store.
Sure. Yeah, I saw those pictures. Good pictures.
He says, I sure like people. And that's the way he really did. He really, really did enjoy people.
All right. Over the course of the time the Gunthers was in business, a number of your family members worked there as well. I mean, it wasn't just your dad or just you.
Every one of us. My first job when I was 5 years old was sorting pop bottles and talking to my brother John. That was his first job too. And I never forget Myers Bottling Company right up the corner here. Had a special on pop, 99 cents a 24-pack case.
Oh boy.
And every one of those bottles was coming. I went in Saturday to see how many bottles I had to sort. It was like a mountain. And I worked and worked all day Sunday and finally got them done. But it was really something.
So how many brothers did you have?
I have 4 brothers.
4 brothers. So 5 of you. No sisters?
No sisters.
Okay. So 5 of you worked there pretty much the whole time.
The whole time.
Okay. Then you also acquired the Gilbert Hotel.
Yep, we did.
And what can you tell us about the Gilbert? I know there was a restaurant there called Daddy's Money. We used to go there quite a bit because they, as I recall, had really good food.
They had good food. It was a good restaurant. My mom ran it at first. I ran the hotel to begin with.
Oh, okay.
And I remember I painted every room. We got an automatic paint sprayer, and I would spray Pam on the windows so we wouldn't have to scrape the paint off. And then we would go and paint everything all at once. Everything's one color. And put bags over lights and stuff like that. It was really bought so we'd have the room to expand the store again.
Oh, I was going to ask you that question.
We expanded the store. The space between the hotel and the store was about a yard.
Did the Gilbert last then as long as, or did it close when you closed the store, or did you get rid of that earlier or sooner?
We sold the Gilbert the whole property at once.
Okay, the whole thing went once.
The whole Tower Shopping Center plus the Gilbert Hotel was sold so we could make room for Quick Trip. Taking all the furniture out of there and loading it up in dumpsters and stuff. Selling, we had rummage sales, and people would come buy a little wooden rack that we use for luggage racks in the rooms, just so they can say they got something from the Gilbert.
From the Gilbert. Then there was the Tiger Warehouse.
That was something that Billy and I thought up, and he wanted to run it, so he ran it, and I ran the store, and he had the innovation of selling Oshkosh Bergosh clothes there, and we would sell everything at warehouse cost plus 10%.
Was the Gunther grocery stores, were they in any other community, or was it just Fairmont?
Yeah, first we bought one in Elmore, and then Wells, Minnesota, and then Britt, Iowa.
Oh, okay.
So we had, each time we bought one, we thought a brother would go there, and they all wanted to stay home in Fairmont.
So were they named Gunthers then as well?
Gunther, yep.
Okay, all right.
The one in Elmore did 2.5 times more business than it should have by the population area.
Really? What do you think? What do you attribute that to?
They got the same grocery ad that they did in Fairmont, and Jubas didn't want to compete with that.
Okay. You must have had a lot of kids that worked in your stores.
Thousands. And that's the biggest sense of pride I have, is to see what they've become. I know I got 3 or 4 doctors that I know of. One guy now owns 3,500 acres of land. Retailers. Your nephew was one of them.
Yeah?
He went to Rapid City and ran a store.
Right.
And I look at all those people that work there, and they I like to think they all learned something in their first job.
Sure.
And I was very happy to have them there, and a lot of them came up to the legislature to visit me.
Well, good experience for the kids to have a job like that.
It was.
And I'm sure you get a lot of pride in that as well. I was going to ask you too about this ration, sugar. Is it a sugar ration?
Sugar
check?
ration.
Yeah, it's just kind of a unique check that you gave me a copy of, and you can say a little bit about it.
You know, in Sioux City, Iowa, there was a Palmer Candy Company that made Bing candy bars, amongst other things. And they were friends of my dad's, and they were rationing sugar, and they said, Herb will give you all the sugar you need for 3 weeks. And Dad sold people sugar like they hadn't bought sugar before for a long time. And he made a lot of friends and did a lot of business because of that. Everybody else had to sell 3 pounds with a ration certificate.
You could say it's kind of a sweet deal then, huh?
It was a sweet deal for us.
It's probably been about 10 years or approximately that since Gunther's closed or since Quick Trip came in. Did you and your family plan to kind of retire the store at that time, or was it something that came up and you decided, hey, let's just do this now?
We did that. You know, I was the first one to leave, and a couple others wanted to leave, and finally we all decided it was time to sell the store out. So after 3 or 4 sales, they got down to some of the spices, 10% of the cost, you can have it. And it was a sad but good experience. And then we had all these fixtures left over, and we hauled them out in the parking lot and put them up for sale. And we gave the 4-H kids at the fair stand, we gave them a bunch of coolers. So they could keep all their stuff for the fair.
Well, it's one thing that I think a lot of us that have lived here for a number of years remember, really fondly remember it, and it's just kind of a part of the landscape that we can see looking back into the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and before. It was a good store, a good experience in going there. So what, from your perspective, what is the most appreciative thing that you have for having been in the grocery business for those years? What sticks out in your mind?
Well, you know, I wrote a grocery ad every week. We spent $110,000 a year with the Fairmont Sentinel, and I don't know how much with KSUM. But you know, having your name in the paper every week and every day on the radio sure made it easier to run for elected office.
Oh, I suppose.
But it was really something to recognize how much your dad and the way he acted towards people and what he did and how kind he was. It was really a big help.
Paid dividends.
Yeah. I remember Christmas time more than any other time. He would know who needed help, and he would sometimes go just pull their cash register tape and say, I'll take care of this one. Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas. But one year I'll never forget, they were the Churchill brothers that lived in one of those little shacks by the canning factory.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And Byron Churchill was in my grade, and he would go walk by my house, and we'd have cap guns in the lawn laying on the grass, and he thought they were real guns, and he was afraid of them. I was laying in bed wondering what kind of Christmas they were going to have. And Tom says, well, let's go talk to Dad. We went down to Dad. Dad said, if you each give them one of your presents, I will make their Christmas for them. And we did. Don't think Tom appreciated that too much. But anyway, it was...
Can't make everybody happy.
No, isn't that... You know, I wanted to make him happy.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was... he went to the store. We had a Nash... upside-down bathtub Nash.
Nash Rambler or Brambler or whatever they were.
Nah, it wasn't a Rambler, I don't think. But anyway, he started out putting a 100-pound bag of potatoes in the trunk of that. Then we filled the car in the back seat completely with toys and food. And he called Charlie Weber and said, come and fill this car full of gas and pick us up after we get rid of the car. And Charlie Weber came, and we went to this guy's house, and Dad said, go get the guy's dad out here. I want to talk to him. And the guy's dad said, did my boys do anything wrong? I said, no, sir. My dad just wants to talk to you. My dad said, my boy Bob and Tom were thinking that your sons weren't going to have the best Christmas, and he wanted to make sure we changed that. So we got this car full of toys and food.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget the 100-pound bag of potatoes in the trunk. And he says, I want you to have a very Merry Christmas. You know, here, by the way, here's the title for the car, and here's an envelope with a $50 bill in it.
I think you made their Christmas.
He made their Christmas, and that was the kind of guy my dad was.
Yeah.
He didn't know what he was going to do, but you knew one thing, he was going to do the right thing.
Very good. Very interesting. Yep. Well, good. Well, thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate it. And thanks to our viewers. We'll see you next time on Out of the Past and at the Pioneer Museum.